Heyo!
Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of CTL Speaks. New setup, new gigs. We're live.
Look at this!
Person.
Look at this setup!
Live and in studio.
Look at this setup! There's a crowd.
There's like
a live
audience.
studio audience.
This is going to be fantastic, and we have a wonderful guest on today's episode. We are going to have a great show. We'll get into our introductions in just a second and introduce our guest. But for right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And here we go. Let's do it. I am your co-host. I'm not used to saying that yet. So I'm so sorry.
I take after starting the podcast. I take a season off.
I'm sorry. I'm just not used to it. It's still new.
New.
This is your co-host Aubyn.
And your co-host Seth. Hi everyone.
And we are back. And today we are covering Cheaper by the Dozen, which opens as the time of this recording this week. This is the third episode in the installment. So far, we have heard from John and Tara, and we've heard from the Gilbreth children, the four of them. And
a third of the children were here.
Something like that. It's something like, is there 12 kids in this? There's 12 kids.
Cheaper by the dozen, Aubyn.
Yeah, but like I thought it was like 2 parents and 10 kids, because then it's like math.
No.
That's not how math. Okay, great. I'm a Spanish teacher, not a math teacher. So we have heard from the parents of the Gilbreth family, and we've heard from the children, and now we have with us the director. So, Director Kahlie, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll get started with the fun.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kahlie DeHotman. I am the director of Cheaper by the Dozen. I've been involved with CTL for well over a decade. Actually, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in regards to this show later, I think.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
There's a teaser.
There's a little,
She's ready.
Secret, I guess. But yeah. And I graduated from Messiah University with a degree in theater. Been doing it a long time, and I love it.
Where did you graduate from high school in 2010 from?
St. John Newman.
John Newman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We always have to plug the locals. We're a good crew.
I wouldn't know I'm not from here.
Exactly. We're a good crew.
All right, so we are here to talk about Cheaper by the Dozen. It's been a story that many people know, from the movies to the play adaptations. And so we're just here to talk about your vision, talk about your experiences throughout. And so first question we have for you today is just from your very first time that Seth approached you with directing this show. What were your feelings? How did you approach the question? And what were your initial thoughts as we began to get into like, oh, I'm now doing this thing?
Yeah, so I was so excited to be asked to direct Cheaper for a number of reasons, one of which being it's been 4 years since I've directed anything at all, let alone with CTL. Yeah. So it was really nice to get back into the group of things with that. It was also exciting to me to direct more of a drama, a comedic drama, but a drama nonetheless. The other 2 shows I've directed here have both been crazy comedies, very fast-paced comedies. To be able to take it a little slower and be a little bit more emotional was really exciting for me. I love to direct everything, so having a chance to do something different was awesome. And then I was super excited with this particular show because Cheaper by the Dozen was actually the first show I ever did with CTL. It was the first show I ever did outside of high school, period. I was technically in fall of my senior year in 2009. I played Anne, the eldest daughter. And it was really meaningful to me then, and it's really meaningful to me now, and it's really cool to come full circle and see this show from a whole new perspective as the director.
Yeah, I mean, so Noises Off and Rumors were your 2 again, and you said they were like fast-paced, and I don't think we had more fast-paced comedies than those 2.
No, they were so fast.
The last.
I remember hearing during Mockingbird, I think is when Noises Off was going up.
Yeah.
I remember being in those rehearsals and hearing Noises Off, all of whatever. I didn't see the show, but I remember hearing all of the rampant noise, which is
Noises Off is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That was a crazy show.
So it's so funny that you said that, like, this is a complete change of pace because I mean, as soon as we picked the show, Keith Wagner, our production planning chair, originally played the father in the last rendition.
It was my dad.
It was your dad. We, him and I were talking, and I said I tried to get him because he also lost his show during COVID. So he was directing a show that got.
Oh, that's true. I was also supposed to do a show during COVID.
You also got a show lost during COVID. So I have a list of people that can kind of like we want to get back, and he was the one that said no, not me, not right now. And I said, well, who was else in that cast? Because it's such a meaningful show for people when they do it that we knew we wanted someone with that heart attachment. And he said, well, Kahlie was the oldest daughter. And I went, let me message her. And it was one of the quickest director conversations ever because you were like, no, I'll do it. And I was like, oh, absolutely. That's great. So what is that, looking at it from a different perspective, what's that like? Because like we know, like as directors, you look at the whole show.
Absolutely.
And as an actor, you look at the whole show in the sense of a story, but you're also looking at your track. Yeah. So what's that switch like to go from one single part of the piece to the whole puzzle in your hand at once?
Well, looking at it, particularly with this show, it's a historical show. It's set in 1924. So being a kid 14 years ago, I didn't think as much about that sort of stuff. And that was pre-actor training and all the stuff, getting a degree in theater that I've done. So I was really just trying to be as emotional as possible when I first did it, I think. I cried on command at the audition and was just very much into being, the woebegone, much put upon daughter, and really focusing just on that aspect of things. But looking at it as a director now, it's seeing the whole world of the show and how we can integrate the time period and little details that we've learned through my husband, Billy, is the assistant director. He's been doing some crazy dramaturgy work and looking into those details and how we can work in what he's done there and how we can build this cast into a family so they all work together and nobody's like I was kind of just thinking about their own little bit.
That's great. Yeah. Are there moments in rehearsals, and there has to be, because we've all done a show, I think, and then worked on it later, that like you watch Sloan, who's playing Anne this time around, who we heard from last week. Yeah. Are there moments where you're like, she says a line and you're like distinctly you remember how you said that line?
I can remember every single one. Talking about this with Billy at one rehearsal, to watch Sloan in particular, she is almost the complete opposite as Anne that I was.
Okay.
So it's really neat to see that complete different take on the character and where I need to pull her back and maybe push her more towards my Anne, as opposed to where my Anne could have used a little bit of Sloan's. Sloan's got a lot more fire and a lot more modern girl kind of individualism than I think my Anne had, and which is wonderful. She's incredible. She's so good in the role, but it's really neat to see how one character can be played so differently and it still rings so true. Yeah. We also talked about how the two eldest daughters kind of mirror their parents.
Okay.
We noticed that as we were reading through the script, Anne is a lot more like her dad, Ernestine's a lot more like the mom. So where can we pull that in? It's really cool to see, and something I never thought about when I played the part.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome that you can have that kind of perspective too. Of, I'm sure when you're giving notes, Anne might get a little bit more exact notes because you've lived those scenes. You're like that beat. It can be like this.
Need to fix that. Yeah.
So with this being, as you mentioned, a historical show, not only is it historical, but it's based off of real people.
Story,
and so we've heard a little bit about that from Tara and John, but how has the process been to pull from those real people, and how does that direction go in terms of making sure it's historically accurate, also bringing in these people, but making it your story and your vision? How do you approach that?
Absolutely. So like I said, one of the first crew members I brought on board with my husband, Billy, he is an incredible actor, but he's been looking to get more into directing. So I figured a good way to get him in was to work with me. We work really well together. And to get him doing some of the historical work, the dramaturgy. So he's been reading the book, Cheaper by the Dozen. He's been looking up historical music, every mention in the play of anything historical, and we've been sharing that with the cast throughout the whole process. There's a huge master document of all of the references that are in the script, so the kids know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
We have a playlist for the pre-show that has all the music that's mentioned in the show. And we've been doing little projects too. And one of the things the parents in Cheaper by the Dozen, the real family, the real Gilbreth family would do, they were all homeschooled. They learned did these crazy projects together. They would write on the walls of their beach home all their math problems and stuff. So we were trying to get a little bit of that in for the cast too, because it's a lot of kids who this is their first show. We want to get them involved and get them living in their characters and in the world. So they've been doing projects. One of them was a Year I Was Born project. So like when you're born as a kid, your parents will order you like a poster that has like, I was born in 1992. Yep. Here's who was famous. Here's who was president, blah, blah, blah. So we did that for them. And we're hoping to display those so the audience can see them when they come in and kind of get to learn a little bit as well. Learning is very important with the Gilbreth family. And then we also did a project where they had to kind of introduce themselves, like as if they were joining a class. So my name is Ann Gilbreth. I look like this, and they have to draw a portrait of themselves. Yeah. I like these kind of movies, this kind of, this, that, and the other thing. That's and amazing. Then once we complete each project, we sit in a group and we talk about it, we discuss, we learn a little bit about the world and make sure we're on the same page. One thing we could have maybe done a little bit better is not count on kiddos to calculate exact ages properly. I think we have like 3 kids who are all 12. Yeah. But that's not as important. What's important is just learning to think more about this is 1924. Yeah. Not 2023.
Well, and I think that makes that whole imagination playing a character more concrete when you're like, this is the actual year. This is what was going on. This is not just kind of pretend, like this is really based in something.
And it's not just the kids, the adults are doing the projects. Yeah, that's true. It's very fun.
What so out of there's 9 kids in the cast.
9 kids.
The other 3 Gilbreths are just
babies.
They're off stage. They're in the nursery. In the nursery. Out of those 9, how many do you know offhand, how many are a CTL stage debut or a stage debut?
Oh, offhand, I don't remember, but there are quite a few who have done lots of classes.
I was going to say, I want to say it's a good bit. While we were reading the bios, it's like 3 maybe.
Yeah, I know Sloan definitely has been on stage before.
Elizabeth was in
Elizabeth, and Chase has
Christmas shows.
Elijah,
yeah.
He was in Newsies.
Yeah.
So I want to say maybe almost up there, like 4, maybe
4 or 5
CTL debuts, which is great.
It's awesome.
What's that been like working with like your older kiddos who they've gone through a lot of classes and they've been done a couple of shows compared to this is downstage, this is upstage.
We did have that conversation.
Yeah.
No, that's one of my favorite things about community theater in general is getting to see all the different ranges and stuff. Like the projects we were just talking about for an experienced actor, someone who's trained, that's normal. You just do that naturally. But getting to teach those skills to the next group, while they also show you newer actors are so great at bringing in energy and an excitement that I think older actors sometimes lose a little bit. Getting your first role is such a big monumental moment, and the excitement of being part of a cast. Brian, our littlest one, his mom posted in the Facebook group this sweet post about how excited he is for every rehearsal to come in and have his theater friends and hang out with them, and how much theater does to build friendships and to build confidence in people, especially kids, is really incredible. Yeah, I think that's such a great encapsulation of what we hope CTL is for everyone and for those kiddos. It's just great. Definitely was for me when I was a senior here. I was the only Newman student involved in community theater at the time, and I was scared. I was lonely at first, but to come in and be so welcomed by a cast, and now to be here, however many years later, is really cool. We won't say how many years later.
But do the math. It was in 2009 was the last one. So
technically, I did the Act Up production.
Yeah,
at Community Arts Center before that. So there was a dress incident. I'm remembering the last podcast. There was a dress. My guess is Kaylee's second go around with CTL Speaks. And you have to scroll back and listen to that first episode, because there is an Easter egg story about Kaylee and her dress and Footloose in the CAC stage. Very good. It's a very good story.
We've all had costume malfunctions.
Yes. Or
surprisingly, no, never.
Oh, you've never fallen through a set during your curtain call and torn your pants from the seam of your crotch to your ankles? Because
you did, and then went out and bowed.
Then it was the night everyone was there.
I don't think I ripped anything on stage.
What about like props or anything? You've never had like a cigar explode in your face, or been dragged over broken glass?
It's fun.
Well, I feel like our sound tech is saying gloves.
The Shrek
gloves. I shrunk. Oh, I did. That wasn't necessarily an on-stage mishap. That was like I shrugged something back. Yeah.
That's funny.
But no, I've never had that excitement because I do feel like it's exciting, especially during the show. Like there's an adrenaline that's like kicked in that like I have to do we got to make this work.
It was the stupidest thing, and it was my first lead. It was when I was in high school. We did Hello Dolly, and there was a number that Horace says, like an amount of money that's in the bank. And I distinctly remember one night of the show. It's the stupidest thing ever, and only an actor would care. I messed up the number, and I went to every cast member whoever said that number after me in Act 1 and was like, "Here's what the number is supposed to be. I messed it up. I wrote it on the whiteboard," and I was like, "It's a little extra. It's a little extra." But it was a lot of pressure. I felt like I just ruined the whole thing. I messed up the number. It's like, I hate this feeling. I just messed up the entire show. Someone saved me. Thankfully, the audience doesn't have the script.
Oh, go on.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say the person I've seen who's best at handling those sorts of things is definitely Billy. You gotta get him to tell you the cigar story from college.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Or just anything in Clue.
He's so
like
good at
anything that could have went wrong in Clue as our Wadsworth. He was like, "Yeah, I will."
Basically
integrate that into the perfectly script that I'm like verbatim reciting. Like
I wish I had that superpower.
Oy vey. Break? Do we have to take a break or no?
No, we don't.
Okay. Back in my day, we used to have to break for commercials, but I guess we
didn't get that far. We haven't. We're gonna get there. The ads haven't kicked in, so we just gotta keep going. Let's keep going.
That's awkward. We're gonna cut that out. Snip, snip. Aubyn, do you have another question?
Sure,
Kahlie.
So there are so many themes in the show, especially because we're talking about family, and so many things happen inside the family. So what is the theme that stands out to you the most as maybe the overarching theme of the play? And what do you want, or what do you hope that audiences take from the performance of everyone in the show in general?
Absolutely. There's a line from Frank Gilbert Sr. That's hard to say. The father. It's a line he said in real life where he says, "Time is precious," and he's referring to the fact that this whole show is about his daughter growing up and his kids growing up and making sure they can move on and do what they need to without him someday, just like every parent does. And that is the line that has stuck with me, especially this time through the most. Another reason the show is important to me, and I'm going to try not to get too emotional, is between the last time I did it and between this time I did it, I lost my father. And it was very hard for me, very emotional. So that particular line and doing this particular show has hit really hard. The feeling of the everyday of being a family is something that you kind of ignore. Like, how many of us take pictures of the things that we do every day, the people we see every day, the things that families are every day. But that's the stuff you remember, and that's the stuff that's the most important. It's the happiest moments. So what I hope people take away from this is that as they're watching the show, they think about their own family and appreciating those moments, because you never know when that may be it.
Well, and I think that that's such a unique, and that's such an unfortunate circumstance, of course. But the allowance of it, of you to be vulnerable enough to allow yourself to feel those, because I'm sure the temptation to say, like, I'm just going to close that part off because I can't let that affect the work. But at the same time, this is a unique experience that 14 years ago you didn't have. And at the kid's young age, they might not be able to understand that, or maybe you weren't at that place, because when you're a kid, time is forever, and you never, time isn't real, right? It's just, and so it's a unique perspective that you're able to connect. And I think that will really help shape the show, and that will really affect just the way that people resonate with the story.
Absolutely. I mean, as a kid, I'd already lost like a grandmother and stuff, and I'd felt sadness, but it's not the same degree. And I think as an artist, it's a fine line to walk between cutting yourself off and cutting those feelings off to get through, and to not let it overwhelm you and get in the way and prohibit your progress there, but also letting it in enough. It's a balance. You can't go too far one way or the other. If you're overwhelmed, you won't be able to function properly, but if you don't let that emotion in, it won't make the work as meaningful.
I think there's something cathartic too about you working through this particular show, going through that within the last 14 years. Because I think I remember Other Desert Cities was a show that you were acting in around that
days after.
Yeah, around that time, and it was just this. I don't know how she's doing it. I don't know, because that was another show that dealt with family and fathers and daughters, and there was there. I think that as artists, it's a really unique opportunity when you get the chance to work through something like that so publicly. And like there's just these skills that you tap into of let's focus and let's do it. And I don't know, I mean, you can speak to it. I've never had that misfortune, but I mean there has to be something that, or else you wouldn't keep coming like doing shows.
No, it definitely helps. It helps put it in perspective, especially from a director's standpoint. From an actor's standpoint, that was too soon after. I really shouldn't have done that. But it was a lot of lines, and I didn't want to force someone else to memorize it. And I felt like if I didn't finish it, it would have wasted the time I felt I should have spent with my dad back then. But now it's been six years. Oh my God, it's been 6 years since that happened. And I've had time to think about it. COVID happened, and that really put the world in perspective. Billy lost the first person in his life. So helping someone else through that process where I'd always had to be my own support system for people I've lost has helped. And then to look at it from a director's perspective, to be able to see it play out in front of you and operate within that system rather than having to feel yourself really helps a lot.
So on a lighter note,
we're coming into the ending. We gotta bring this up. We gotta bring this up. Come see Cheaper by the Dozen.
No, it really is a very, very funny show. Like that is the takeaway I want, but I also want people to laugh.
No,
we also have a cast of 9 rambunctious, silly little kids and a dog.
Well, and I think that's the beautiful part when I reread the script when we were going through production planning. There's a great big heart to the show, and that gets very exposed at certain points. And I think there are those touching, sincere moments of everything we've talked about within the last 5 minutes, but it's wrapped in this family dynamic that you can't help but fall in love with because they have all the right pieces there between the kids and mother, and it's a really great package.
Yeah, Dad alone, that character it's very funny.
So with that being said, what is your favorite moment? Without giving too much away, because of course we want people to buy tickets to the show, but what is your favorite
Which is really great, because this is airing during Tech Week.
This is Tech Week. This is opening week.
Just choosing one is really hard. The kids have chosen such fun little moments. Even moments where like the action is over here and there's 2 kids who are just supposed to be in the background over here. They've chosen such cute little things that it's hard to pick. But I guess the point I'd have to say is the point everybody loves the most in the read-through and all that. The family decides they're going to operate with a democratic council where all the kids have a say in all of the family decisions. And the dad, who is this big, larger-than-life character, who is the head of the household, who what he says goes, puts power into their hands, for better or for worse. And the kids get one up on him and end up convincing him to get a dog that he never wanted. But just this rousing round of eyes in the family council and all the kids so excited, and Dad just going, no! And Mom getting a little jab at him is very fun. It's a very cute scene.
So much to look forward to, and so many interesting perspectives. And I like sitting down with the directors because we really get to see the vision. Sometimes we just go see a show and you want to enjoy it, but I like the behind the scenes look. And so this has been an eye-opening experience for me, as it always is. And I know for our audiences who are listening and are watching that they're going to take something away from this episode too. And I think that's great. And so as we close this episode, Kahlie, is there anything else you want people to look forward to? Anything you want to share with them before kick off in 3 days? 3 days.
Oh, 3 days.
3 days. Just come see it. Support these kiddos. They've worked their butts off. The adults have too. We didn't talk enough about the adults, but these are some incredibly talented actors of all ages. The kids, their unity has been incredible. Usually in a script, you'll hear like people murmur off during a discussion, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to do it. These kids, day one, it was like you push a button on a soundtrack, like perfect. Awesome. They've been wonderful. They're funny. They're heartwarming. They're great. Please come see it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So please get your tickets. They're available now at ctlshows.com. The show Cheaper by the Dozen opens this week, October 20th through the 22nd, and the 26th through the 29th. So please make sure to head to ctlshows.com and get your tickets. Support the kids, support the adults, support the Community Theater League. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of CTL Speaks. Have a great day.
We need to sign off.
But for right now, we don't have one.
No.
So goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.